Dear Bante, you know, of course, that since my early amoebiasis, my guts have continued to give me trouble. I was able to make some progress in spite of it, but in 1960 and 1962, I had fresh infections and my condition deteriorated.
It attacks your guts. They called it amoebiasis because nothing is retained. But in Indian he says it is not amoebiasis, it was a cancer of the guts.
The body was completely troubling him most of the day. And you could see it from the face also, you know, that he was in a suffering condition. Tired out, yeah, worn out.
In June 1962 then, I found myself once more with live amoebiasis, blood and mucus and the rest, and so I wrote to Dr. De Silva, who kindly sent me a box of pills to take. After 2 or 3 days I began experiencing a violent erotic stimulation, as if I had taken a very strong aphrodisiac.
And then later, of course, there came the other problem in, you know, with the psoriasis, too much medicines. I saw some of these bottles he had left in one kuti in the island hermitage. It's just, you can, amount of bottles, you know, from Western medicines, very strong medicines, you know, from Switzerland and all that. I mean, he must have suffered a lot.
This erotic stimulation can be overcome by successful samatha practice, but my chronic amoebiasis makes this particularly difficult for me. So for me it is simply a question of how long I can stand the strain.
That's why he went into the notes, you know, in that intellectual faculties he had. There he found his solace, there he found his energy, there he found his faculties that gave him actually vitality. The Dhamma, and thinking on the Dhamma and writing it down, that brought him up again. Otherwise he would probably have withered away much before.
In the first place, there is, for obvious reasons, a frequent and pressing invitation to disrobe. But I did not seek this nervous disorder, and I do not, in my calmer moments, see why it should be allowed to have its own way. In the second place, at the other extreme, there is suicide. Though I do not say this is good, I will say that, under the circumstances, and in the long run, it is better than disrobing. I am oscillating between 2 poles. Wife or knife, as one might say.
And he made, of course, attempt, even before, you know, to cut off his life. I think once or twice he tried to cut his veins by his knife, razor knife, you know, we had that razor knife in those days, and he couldn't do it. And then one day on Pinnapata, you know, he get the bananas and the cake and the biscuits wrapped up in papers. And then he opened the papers coming back, and then it was an English paper, you know, very strange, you know, in Hamuduru, Bundala, in those days, you know, 65, 64 maybe, 1964. And then there was a case, you know, in the English paper, 2 old English ladies commit suicide by cutting their veins. So he said, how 2 English ladies can do and I cannot do, because I'm afraid.
There are several very important instances in the discourses where the disciples of the Buddha committed suicide. And then, for example, this disciple called Samiddhi, another disciple called Channa, I think Sangamaji. So at least 3 or 4 cases of the monastic disciples of the Buddha committing suicide. But the interesting thing is, in the process of, I mean, these people were so developed. According to the discourse, according to this particular account, in the process of committing suicide, they attained arahanthood.
As he knew that he is not an arahat, he would have not the right to commit suicide. What kind of offense was this kind of suicide? If one commits suicide for a monk, according to Ñanavira's interpretation, it is a dukkata. That is a very small offense, the smallest offense we have. Other Sinhalese monks had a different opinion about suicide for a non-arahat. They were of the opinion that it is a very grave offense. They couldn't define it, but they actually thought that it could be close to parajika even. Because if you kill another person, or you make another person commit suicide because of your advice, then you are parajika and you're no longer a monk. So they became quite averse to Ñanavira Thera as a person after his suicide. When I first went to Vajrayana, in that gangway, 2 large photos, Ñanamoli, Ñanavira, in the gangway. Next time, after 2 years I came back maybe, after the suicide of Ñanavira, Ñanavira's picture was removed. So obviously it was the chief monks there, all they came together and discussed the matter and removed him because they wanted to show that we are not in agreement with any kind of suicide, whether it is under conditions of sickness or conditions of despair, mental despair. And even if he was a Sotapanna, they would say that even a Sotapanna would be very careful to take his life because he knew anyway it is an offense, however small it was. So he fell into a kind of disgrace with one of the learned sanghas in Colombo.
මමත් දැක්ක දොරේ පොඩි තුවායක් වගේ එකක් තියලා කඩ කරලා වහලා තියෙන එක. ඉතින් අපි එහෙම දොර අරින්නේ නැහැ කවදාවත්. දොර වහලා තිබ්බට කුටි දොර අරින්නේ නැහැ. මේගොල්ලන් පොඩ්ඩක් අර දොර වහලා තියෙන විදිහට නිකන් සැකයක් මතුවලා දොරට පොඩ්ඩක් අත තියලා මේක කරනකොටම දොර ඇරිලා තියෙනවා. දොර ඇරෙනකොට ඒගොල්ලෝ දැක්කම හාමුදුරුවෝ අපවත් වෙලා තියෙනවා. ඥානවීර හාමුදුරුවෝ මෙහි වැඩ ඉන්න කායෝකවාණිය අපේ ගමට ලොකු මේ එළියක් තිබුණා වගේ. අපිට හිතන හැටියට නම් ධර්මය අනුවම තමයි ජීවත් වුනේ. මොකද ඒක නිසා තමයි අර විදිහේ දේවල් මම හිතන්නේ මේ ඔව් සිද්ධ වුනේ. මොකද ආදී හිටියා සතුන් හැම සතෙක්ම විසකුරු සතුන් හැම සතෙක්ම හිටියන්නේ. නමුත් ඒ හාමුදුරුවෝ කිසිම මේ කරදරයක් වුණේ නැහැ.